every direction.
Lisa, before we jump to Crystal's thoughts on the case, you just said something that kind of I hadn't even thought about when you talk about like professionals coming in and that question I asked earlier about the underreporting. That was an aspect I didn't think about at all. Like if you have somebody in the mental health profession or just in like that concept of anybody with that kind of diagnosis worried about losing their ability to be that. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Or even because like you were saying, like the anxiety can show up as I'm hearing it, like I'm doing it to myself, but like I'd be like, well, what if someone found out I thought about medicine, like I take care of their babies, and you just, you're already disappointed in yourself. So you're ready to hear that everyone would be. So we're always doing the same thing the other ladies have said too, like you're safe here. No one's going to blow your cover or do anything. And the only people who come are good mothers. Those are the only ones who come for help.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You're doing amazing things.
It's a great place. It's a great team.
I applaud you.
Thank you.
I mean, is your baseline in a situation like Lindsay where the first thing that you're ruling out is postpartum depression? I mean, like it seemed like to me, like I felt like I was in like crazy world listening to Tufts. I'm like, what? Like I'm no doctor and I'm not a woman.
And I don't want to like be like I woulda, because how the hell do I know anything? And I was in there and I didn't see her Edinburgh. That made me insane too. But like that poor girl too, like she started during COVID, all telehealth, nobody touched anybody or saw anybody. And Ellie, I heard you say this one day, like we see everyone in person because I want to see your leg going like this. And I want to see what your cuticles look like. And I want to see if the baby cries, do you look or do you tense up? Like I want all those physical changes. And then because the therapists and the nurse practitioners are there, we can all talk. We don't have to have HIPAA, BIPA, ROI, anything. We're a team collaborative effort. So we're constantly saying back and forth what is going on and flagging it. And, it's really beautiful.
God, we have
a hand wringer.
Have your things everywhere.
I'm a picker.
So Bob knows, he's like, what's going on?
But I can put them down here and you wouldn't know.
And no one knows.
Nope. I could have no pants on down here and you wouldn't know. And I would say, I'm fine. I'm fully dressed.
I'm pretty sure Bob has no pants on.
And it's hot out, it looks like. And you could say everybody about waxing and waning. I can pull my shit together because of the paranoia that's empowering me to not let you see. We call it the mask. They put the mask on. Their husband comes in the room, they put the mask on. I used to always say the more makeup I had on, the worse I felt. Like the more I looked like, yeah, great, things are good, the worse I felt.
Wow.
So it's you should hear these women's stories. They would just break you.
Man.
And then be very healing to you. But Lindsay's lost. Lindsay is, when you wrote you wished you could hug her, I like sobbed. Because every day I look at her, I'm like, God, I just wish I could drive. How far to Boston, just sit behind her and just hold her. Like 90% of my job is hugging people.
Yeah, I mean, and the amount of shit that I'm taking, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck.
I wouldn't either.
It's like these, and it's dudes, just these
like,
weird,
don't even go somewhere else.
Hating,
yes,
repeal the 19.
I'm there? Like, icky.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm like, bring it. Because if it's gonna, like, I'll be that guy. I don't care. I meant every word that I typed. Like, that's exactly how I felt in that moment. It was
I would drive there just to tell her, like, she's a human and they're dehumanizing her. I don't know how those women cards haven't been taken away. The other lawyers, like
it's unbelievable.
It is.
All right. So Crystal, tell us, do you have any specific thoughts that you want to share on the case?
Yeah, I think overall this was touched on in various ways, but to put it a particular way, I think that Lindsay got caught in a system of over medicalization and over just like we're treating the symptoms, not the person in front of us. Because what I see as a clinician is, where are these other clinicians? Like curiosity, because what one person describes as depression maybe very different culturally and experience wise and word wise than someone else would choose. And, something that, again, not to Monday morning quarterback, but just looking at like the patterns, it seems like her providers weren't looking at the bigger picture and the patterns of, okay, something that caught me was there are often themes that people have within obsessive compulsive disorder. And I was curious about whether she was having some health OCD around herself or the children, in Googling over and over and over. To me, there's an anxious, not a planning, and of anxiety of, let me look to try to reassure myself. Let me look to try to reassure myself. But the clinicians didn't seem overly curious. It was just like, well, she's saying this, check the box. She's saying this, check the box, and not following up.
Right. Right. And so Tamara had said, the workaround is exactly that discussion, and mother baby inpatient programs like they've done in other countries for years is that available, as far as any of you know, in the States?
There's a few in the United States. At UNC, there is one. Samantha Meltzer Brown opened it, and it probably has 5 beds. And, there's someone in New Jersey that has to get to North Carolina, or there's someone in Kansas. Like, how is she going to get there? So it's such a desert, they call it, when there's no care.
And I can imagine that it's a very high risk as far as from a legal standpoint.
Yeah.
If you're bringing in people who feel like they can harm their children, right, with their baby.
Yep.
And then, so maybe 5 beds is all anyone could have, because you got to have eyes.
Yeah, and they're not all ever filled. It is, because then again, they're worried about, so if I'm admitting my fear is about the baby, but I'm bringing the baby, I'm setting them up for double liability. But they charged ahead, and they really have shown, they haven't lost anyone, but it is a lot. It's very layered.
All right. So I want to bring on someone in the backstage to tell a story. And I can't tell, Claire, if you or Stephanie or Kathy or Liz, like any of you that are on to share your story, pop your camera on real quick and wave your hand, and I'll, as opposed to an expert, and I'll grab you. All right. So Kathy is one, and I'm not seeing Claire or Stephanie, and then so is Liz. All right. So
Claire looks like she said she'd go on, but doesn't want to put her camera on, just FYI.
Right. But I wanted her to stick it on. Do you know if she's an expert, a professional, or wants to tell her story? I think it's to tell her story. So because I think she just waved. So I'll bring her next. I'm assuming that the order that you guys are appearing backstage is how you came on. So Claire, can you hear us? And you don't.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Yeah, so I tried to write an email to you guys with my story, but it gets so lost, and I've been struggling a little bit with some hypomanic symptoms the last couple of weeks. So I kind of vomited on the email, and then emailed you immediately being like, don't read this. This doesn't make any sense. So I'm probably still not going to make a whole lot of sense, but
it's all right.
I have OCD and bipolar 2. I started showing symptoms of OCD when I was around 12. I came up with my first suicide plan when I was 12, and I've somehow made it to 38. So I've been in and out of the medical system, like the mental health care. I've seen every provider, been in every program, taken every single medication under the sun. And so I have a lot of thoughts about the Lindsay Clancy, and I've been relating to her way too much, which has been really scary the last couple of weeks. But the story that I wanted to tell, because I've got a million stories, but the story that I wanted to tell was about how I ended up kind of running into the legal system because of my mental health. Because I ended up I don't know exactly how it ended up working, but I essentially pled not guilty by reason of insanity, and then the charges were dropped. So I've I I had a really strong spat of trying to get into different mental health care programs. And really, because I didn't get diagnosed with OCD until I was probably like 25-ish. Um, and when I was finally diagnosed with OCD, it just sort of like everything kind of opened up and was like, holy shit, that's what my life has been. And so I was making good money at the time, so I could go to different doctors, and I had good insurance. And so I was trying to get into all these different programs. And one of the things I ran into the most was them saying, like, you're too much of a liability. We can't take you. Because I was trying to get into OCD programs, and in the OCD programs, they weren't as willing to accept people that were suicidal. So it kept being, you need a higher level of care, you need a higher level of care, which I think is really funny when they just say to you, well, you need a higher level of care, we won't take you, go home, find one. And so I finally, after being rejected from a ton of different programs, got into an inpatient program. I don't know if the professionals know Rogers in Wisconsin. And I do not live in Wisconsin. I live very far from Wisconsin. And so but they weren't even willing to take me into their OCD program. They said, we need you in the sort of like depression, anxiety program first to get you stabilized, and then we'll put you in the OCD program. So I finally got inpatient. I was like so relieved. It is actually, when you're so sick, getting in and having somebody take care of like the basic things, it it you lose a lot of control, but it also feels so much better to some extent. Like when you can actually shower, you're being forced to shower every day, so you do shower every day. Um anyway, so I went into that program, and I had this was 2016, I think. And I don't know what the state of the treatment is today, but TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, is what they were using on basically all of the sort of depression, anxiety patients. And I went in and I was like, yes, this is so exciting. I've been trying to get myself treated for so long. Maybe this will actually work. So I went in and I started having this done, which is, for people that don't know, they put like a magnet on it's not what you see from the movies of them like putting you under and shocking your brain, but it's like little static electric shocks to your brain for like a half hour or something. They put like this headband on you. And so I started doing that. Well, when I started doing that, it's hard to sort of explain at this point. I started becoming manic from it, but nobody recognized it. So I was able to talk myself out of the sort of depression, anxiety program and talk myself into the OCD program, but they continued to do the TMS, and the TMS kept making me worse and worse and worse. And so I was in the OCD program, not really being followed by the doctors that I should have been followed by, because I was no longer in the depression anxiety program. Anyway, I went absolutely nuts from this treatment. And I don't have a better way of putting it. I don't know. All of that sounds really bad from a mental health point of view, but I went nuts. Like, I was out of my mind. And so they kicked me out of the hospital. Um, and this is again the same sort of thing. They kick you out, but they don't send you anywhere. They're like, you're too difficult to treat. So they kicked me out and they sent me back home, put me on a plane, sent me back home, and I was still out of my mind. And so I came back and I was still under the impression that, oh, no, TMS is going to save my life. It's going to be the best thing ever. So I found a TMS provider here. I saw them 2 times before they called me in and said, you cannot do this. Like, this is making you manic. Like, you're going downhill. Like, we need to stabilize you and you cannot have TMS anymore. And within a week or 2, my psychiatrist that I've been seeing forever was like, oh, she's back to baseline. Like, it was just, there had to be a responsible doctor that was paying attention that said, like, oh, when we shock her brain, she goes slightly manic and has no control over what she's doing. And so we need to stop this. But it was several doctors in before somebody stopped it. And in that period of time, I came back and my friends basically were angry at me for getting myself kicked out of the hospital. And I was also like losing my mind, couldn't understand, like didn't know what I was doing. And I made some offhanded comment of like, oh my God, I could kill her. Right? Like this sarcastic comment that in any other situation, people wouldn't think twice about it. Well, I ended up, because I said that, I ended up being taken to court. I was, my best friend and business partner filed a restraining order against me. And I had no idea what was going on. This was still while my brain was being shocked. And I was at home and my aunt had come to live with me because everybody knew like something's not stable. Like we need to gather around. And I live in Washington State. My aunt lives in New York. Like they came out and were living with me. When the cops showed up for 2 reasons. They showed up to serve this restraining order, but also because another friend of mine had called and asked for a safety check. So in the same visit, these cops were handing me a restraining order and making sure I wasn't suicidal. Restraining order from like what I would call my best friend at the time. And so the idea that those, like, they could do the 2 things at the same time was just crazy. Now looking back on it. But then in that moment, I didn't know what I was doing. I just keep saying my brain was being shocked. I had no idea what was going on. I immediately texted my friend. They served me the restraining order. You can't contact this person. I immediately texted her, like, what the fuck is this? And so then it was, oh, well, now you violated the restraining order. So now we're going to charge you criminally. And I was out of my mind. So I finally got, like, I had a lawyer because we also had to dissolve the business because we were business partners. And it was just an absolute disaster. But I thank God now when I see all of these different cases, I know it was just like a misdemeanor, like violation of a restraining order. But my lawyer said, like, our defense is going to be not guilty by reason of insanity because of this treatment she's undergoing. And and thank God the prosecutor said, okay, as long as we'll drop the charges if you extend the restraining order a year. I was like, fine. And then this was my best friend, business partner, and neighbor. And so she left the state. I moved like an hour away, and, never the 2 paths shall cross again. But it was that I've got a billion stories like that, but that's the one where it kind of ran into the legal system, which is what I kind of sort of thought I should share with you guys.
No, I appreciate you sharing, and thankfully, even though it was just a misdemeanor, still it has ramifications, and thankfully they took into consideration your mental health. Lisa or Crystal, anything to
Yeah, Claire, first, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I'm so glad you had good support systems in some ways, but in general, that's an area of interest of mine in the way that like the legal system overlaps with the mental health system in terms of like the treatment of people. Because statistically, people who are suffering from a mental illness are more likely to be the victims of crimes, not the people perpetrating the crimes. And so, you know, coming at it from what's called an abolitionist, anti-carceral mental health perspective is looking at how inherently when a provider acts as an authority and takes away people's autonomy, that can be a form of punishment instead of actually like support and allowing people to get better. In the ways that like often law enforcement escalate a situation instead of de-escalating a situation in terms of Claire's lived experience of setting her up for failure legally when she is in a place where she needed more support, not involvement in the legal system.
Yeah, the fact that those it's echoing. The fact that the cops just didn't even take into consideration my mental state in the moment that they served the restraining order, and then turned around and it was just a mess. But like I don't even know what to say, because it was such a disaster, and there was nobody had the insight and then into what was happening, and it had to take external people to bring me out of it, but nobody external was able to do that. And the external people, like the cops and the prosecutor and everything, they just make it worse. And you just need somebody to look from the outside and say, hey, this is actually, she's going to all of these treatments, she's taking all this medication, she's having a brain shock like 3 times a week, and somehow, and okay, so her personality has changed and her best friend is filing a restraining order. Like, maybe we should take a step back and say something else is happening, not just she's this horrible person that's made, when making a comment of, oh my god, I could kill her, actually is homicidal.
Right. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story, and it shines a light on the failures of the criminal justice system when it intercepts with mental health, like we are, seeing right now with Lindsay Clancy as well. But thank you very much, Claire. We appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you for having me on, and thank you for doing this.
All righty. Bye-bye.
All right. So before we keep rolling, hold on. Let me get this out. So if you have sent an email and you've decided to come on, which I prefer, frankly, I think there's power in hearing it from the people themselves and their voice. Let me know, because what I don't want to be doing is having because I won't know if I'm reading somebody's email that has come on the show and told their story on the live. Does that make sense? So
yes,
if you being a guest on and you're telling your story, just say, hey, Bob, I sent an email. Disregard that. I'm going to tell my story live, because I figured once we got rolling with this that people would feel empowered to come on and tell their stories, because people are being so brave and sharing. And I think that's helping people get over their nerves of coming on with us and being able to tell us their story. So I wanted to throw that out there.
And I did tell Bob to look for Alex D's email. So right now we are going to do some emails and some
I thought I saw Alex in the backstage here. No? But there was definitely an Alex that kept coming in and going out.
Yeah, I don't.
So
Oh,
I
there
don't
is an
know.
Alex. There is an
I
Alex. I
don't
don't
know
know
if
if
that's the
that's
same Alex.
Alex. If that's you, just while you're backstage, turn on your camera and wave.
Give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you're the same Alex.
And I will kick myself if I don't do this. I did write a grief book beneath the grief tree for people 8 and older. So if that is something people are interested in, I would love if you go check it out. So thank you so much for that opportunity.
No, sure. Beneath the grief tree. I mean, people always need resources for grief, and this is important for all of that. Babe, do you want to play, either read an email or play?
Yeah, I'm gonna read an email. So I'll start with the emails. We'll do one, and then I'm telling y'all right now, we're at almost 4 hours. It's gonna have to be 2 parts. Like we would have to go 15 hours, and we are bound and determined to have every single person's story told. I'm hoping next week there's going to be another off day where we can do it all day.
All right, so get
all
to
day.
it. Go ahead.
All right. So I just don't want people thinking like,
Oh, Crystal, can you give Tracy can you email us a link to your book, and Tracy will get it out there, or
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
okay. So this is some people were very good about saying whether they wanted it to be read anonymously. Others weren't. I'm going to default to anonymous. If it sounds like a story that you wrote to me and you want me to share your first name, then let us know in chat and I will do that. I don't want to, I'd rather err on the side of caution than putting it out there without somebody's consent. Hello, Bob and Allison. I've been following your coverage of the Lindsay Clancy case, and I wanted to first thank you, as I'm so proud to be in this community. I would also like to share my experience with postpartum depression. After the birth of my first child, I experienced thoughts, feelings, and emotional struggles that were completely unlike anything I had experienced before. I felt overwhelmed, disconnected from myself, and frightened by how dramatically my mental state had changed. There were times when I did not recognize my own thoughts and struggled to understand what was happening to me. Intrusive thoughts no one should have to experience. Although it was brief for me, which I am grateful for. However, when you are going through it and literally in the middle of the weeds, it's suffocating you to no end. What many people do not realize is that postpartum depression and other perinatal mental health conditions can be far more severe and complex than simply feeling sad or exhausted after having a baby. The experience can affect every aspect of a person's thinking, emotions, and daily functioning, especially adding lack of sleep adds another layer. From my own experience, the thoughts were haunting, intrusive, mind can play tricks, and worst of all, no control. Sad part is you don't want to tell anyone, purely for protecting yourself of the humiliation and embarrassment. And only if admitting it out loud, then is it real. In other words, the struggle is real. I feel I robbed my husband and son of growing our family. And because knowing with each child it could get worse, I not only protected myself and others for unforeseen future, it still makes me sad. However, a happy trio family. Just imagine my PPD was 23 years ago, and you just simply don't forget about it. I wanted to add my perspective as someone who has personally experienced postpartum depression and understands how serious and life-altering these conditions can be. Then she said, "Thank you for discussing these difficult topics." I mean, it's our pleasure. Thank you for sharing. If you recognize that story and you wanna throw your name in chat, throw it in there.
And I'm assuming you guys that's like, it's very unfortunate. I see. I struggle because I don't want to call it normal, because it's definitely not normal. And I feel like that was part of the issue with Lindsay, is that the healthcare professionals who hear it all the time are like, "Well, that's normal," but that it's all too often occurring severe situation that she's not alone in, kind of
And you
thing.
really have to be trained. Like the other part of this is education and medical training. And no one owns a mom after she has a baby. I mean, we get to go at 6 weeks, right? And then woohoo, and you're out on your own. And then who's checking mom? The pediatrician? No, the baby's the patient. The OB? No, you're after 6 weeks. Who are you going to call? Your primary? And if no one's tracking you, who would you even feel comfortable telling you think something is wrong? Unless someone like settled in and looked at you and felt you and told you were safe no matter what you were going to say, that we were going to help, we weren't going to hurt.
I watch postpartum people like a hawk as a clinician because it can change so fast. It's such a emotional stressor. And yes, it's a beautiful, wonderful thing, but I'm sure every parent in here would agree that it's a very hard mentally and emotionally and physically.
I always say it's the worst thing you could do for a marriage initially. And we talk about a lot of times, the partner disconnect and the role identity loss. And there's so much more going on than just having a baby. And that if all these empathic people are the ones that I'm seeing, they're feeling it so much more because they expect so much more of themselves. They've never had to ask for help. They were always the helpers.
You know what I'm realizing as I'm listening to the stories and I'm listening to you guys speak is how incredibly lucky I was, because my wife was incredible. Like none of that happened. I mean,
Thank God. I don't know how I would have dealt with it.
You're a
I just
superwoman.
can't imagine.
But yeah, I don't even know.
Well, she would have had you. And if people have a partner who care or see or aren't, and not that I'm even putting blame on other partners. You have more kids, right? You have 3-4 kids. I'm just trying to give everyone a banana. So how do I know who's watching me or not watching me? Like, it sounds so easy to fault someone, but if you're with 4 little kids, someone is working for the money and someone is sitting at home trying to get a nap and so maybe you're not being noticed, but it's not a fault. But if she had had you, then you would have helped her.
100%. All right, let me read one more email and I think we'll bring another person up. So, hi, Bob and Allie. I wanted to share my mental health story with you, but I'm unable to speak it out loud. It's so similar to Lindsay Clancy's, but for the ending. It's scary. Do with it what you will, but please don't use my name. I'm not going to even mention it. But I subscribed back when Buried came out and my hometown bank closed and my only primary bill. So she's apologizing for not being a member. Quit doing that. So anyway, on Friday, I turned 60 and I'm a retired emergency department RN, followed by urgent care RN at the latter half of my career. Mom to 32-year-old twin sons and 2 incredible grandchildren. I'm widowed and generally quite happy and optimistic, and I take no medications. In 1997, I was 31 years old at the height of my career in a very busy city emergency department, 25 miles northwest of Boston. My children, 3-year-old twin boys, were terrors. I was 100% type A, badass perfectionist. Everything had to be done my way. If you didn't like it, well, there's the door. Definitely mild OCD. 2 years prior, my husband, an alcoholic, blew up our world when he killed a man drunk driving and was in prison. In May of 97, I fell into a deep depression. I lived alone with the boys and had no significant help. I was meeting their needs, showering them with love and affection, but unable to do anything else. I had to take a medical leave from work. I guess I had been in shock for 2 years as the accident and imprisonment of my husband happened in May of 1995. I'd functioned entirely normal for 2 years. In September of 1997, I was put on Prozac, and almost immediately I was cured of my depression. I felt as if I should have been on this drug my entire life. I was on top of the world. I went back to work, out drinking with the crew, worked out 2.5 hours a day, 6 days a week at the gym. Truly amazing. By November of 97, something was off. I didn't feel so great. No more top of the world. I couldn't sleep. My thoughts were racing so fast that I had to write and write and write just to try to expel them from my head. I can't tell you the thoughts, what the thoughts were. It was 30 years ago, but I probably couldn't have told you what they were 6 months after I had them. I felt like my mother and sister were out to get me. And again, the darkness of depression enveloped me, but I didn't tell anyone other than work, and only that I needed more leave for medical reasons. By January, I decided I could not go on. I absolutely could not live another day in the pain. I felt, however, I loved my beautiful boys so deeply, so intensely, and I knew then, as crazy as it may seem, I know now that there was no one who could possibly take care of them and keep them safe. And that was in all caps, as well as I could. I decided because I had to die, I would just have to take my beautiful babies with me. I did have a plan, despite the fact that these men are now 6'2" and 200 pounds solid muscle. It's far too painful for me to share what my plan was. It was 3 a.m. I was making preparations to execute my plan, and I heard a voice. Previously, I had no hallucinations or voices. The voice I heard, neither male or female, said, "Call Phil." Phil's my little brother. He's now a retired police sergeant, then a young cop. I told him I needed help. I can't remember what else I told him. I guess I've blocked it out. Came to my house in what seemed like seconds. He called my best friend to stay with my children, then get them to my mom. He brought me to the ER. I was committed to 7 days inpatient behavioral health, followed by 8 weeks of 5-day-a-week outpatient all day mental health treatment. I had a complete nervous breakdown. I was told that the Prozac made me hypomaniac, which in turn led to a crash. I was put on a mood stabilizer for a few years. And severe anxiety that I had since the kids were born, that I'd been hiding from everyone. Did I mention I'm first generation Irish? It's basically a moral sin to talk about our emotions or express feelings. True story. I wasn't diagnosed bipolar. It was believed to be just a giant situational clusterfuck. The only forever medication I ended up with was a benzo twice a day. They'll pry those out of my cold, dead hand. LOL. Anyway, I believe with all my heart, this is how Lindsay was feeling about her children. I don't claim to know her diagnosis or if she heard a command. It's not for me to judge. I don't think it's for anyone to judge. Her story and mine are so similar, it's scary. But for some unknown reason, it could have been me in her shoes, and my heart breaks for her. People say what about the kids? I don't think at all about them. They're gone. Maybe it's those 20 years doing time in the ER. I've seen hundreds upon hundreds of babies leave, and I know they're at peace. Lindsay isn't. Anyway, do with what you will with my story. My guess, there's a whole lot of moms and grandmoms out there with stories just like it to tell.
Oh, oh my God, my heart. How many years later? 30? And can you
30.
feel like it was yesterday to her? I've been on airplanes and there's been a 60, like a grandma sitting next to me, and you chit chat and she'll tell me a story about her as a mom 40 years ago. And she starts bawling because it's still she's so devastated and mad and hurt by herself. And it just is amazing how so many people, so many more than that statistic. There's no studies. There's nothing, if people aren't admitting it, which they're not, then we have to add in this pretend number. Wow. Whenever I talk somewhere, I say 1 in 3. I don't say 1 in 8 because there's a spectrum of it. You could have not baby blues to PPD, but literally perinatal mental health. I could just be obsessing about the baby's breathing. So I buy a nano, I buy an owlet, I buy the blanket, I buy the pad, I buy the monitor. That's PMEDs.
Yeah.
But I don't say it to anybody because I've managed it. And then it can go all the way there. So there's half the people are never even saying anything.
All right. So I'm just realizing now how I can see the backstage chat. I've been trying to figure it out.
What do you mean, the private chat?
Yeah. And so I'm going to bring Kathy on because she's got to go. And then we'll let, after Kathy tells her story.
We got to bring Samantha up. She's been hanging.
Yes, Samantha is next. And there was, and I was trying to figure out who the other experts are back there. But let's bring Kathy up, and then we'll, after she tells her story, we'll sub out Crystal and
I'm gonna move off screen so you guys can do the 4.
All right, and get your
I'll be listening.
audios ready.
You ready for me?
Yes. Sorry, Kathy.
I've been crying
Take your
since
time.
the last 4 hours that you've been on. So
understandable.
So my story is, and I'm glad Crystal's here because I'm 58, and at 55, I checked into the inpatient outpatient treatment, and they told me that I was probably ADHD, paralysis, and autistic burnout, and my brain couldn't function anymore. But it was an out of care because I had Kaiser insurance, and they didn't have anybody to treat me, so they put me to another network. So they told me they couldn't diagnose me, and they sent me back to Kaiser. And I went back to Kaiser, and they told me that they don't treat adult autism. So I guess we're never diagnosed, but we're supposed to live with this for the rest of our lives. So I've had about 5 insurances since then, and nobody will diagnose adult autism. And I did get my ADHD diagnosis, and I'm combined. There's two. There's like, you guys can say, I can't remember, hyperactive and another one I can't remember, but I'm both of them. So anyway, so my story is, I was born into a family that my parents hated our guts. They told us every single day what a burden we were, and my dad didn't want to. And so all of us got jobs when we were like 10, 11 years old. We all had to support ourselves, and we lived like we were poor. We got all our stuff at Salvation Army, or when my mom made it. And my dad had absolutely nothing to do with us. He would tell my mom, your kids this, your kids that. And then he was our biological dad. And my mom was like in her own world. She read the Bible all day long, or she'd go to the car and read the newspaper, and she just never interacted with us. So my sister and I were good in sports. So the only time she ever interacted with us was like at sports, and then she was like, yay, that's my child, my child's the best, and look at me, I'm the best mother because I'm supporting my kid. And we'd go home, and she'd totally ignore us and then tell us, you could have done that better, and you could have done this better. And so we never went to the doctor, and our parents would say, unless you're dying, I don't want to hear about your problems. So so when my sister was, so then my mom was a Bible thumper, and the 2 older ones are 2 years apart, and then me and my other sibling, the 3 of us were 1 year apart. And my mom would line us up front by our height in front of her Bible school class, and she would allow 2 men to take us upstairs. And you know what, to us, I can remember from like 2 years old until 12 when I finally told my mom, I'm not going to church anymore. I'm not going to. And my mom would triangulate us together, so we never told each other, because we just assumed. But I also know now, if I told my mom, I probably would have been a drug addict, prostitute, or something. So my brother was high on meth, and he killed his best friend. And so when he was in prison, he told my mom when he was like 20, and my mom called him a liar. And my sister told when she was in her 30s, and my mom called her a liar. And in my 30s is when I asked my sister, and my sister said, yeah, it happened. And she said there was another deacon at church that also did it to her, but there's two that did me. And so I told my mom when I was 45, when my dad was on his deathbed. And again, my mom called me a liar. So my other siblings already told her. She said I was a liar and I just want attention. So I'm 58 and I was no contact with my mom since I was 25. I just like, all you do is cause me harm and I don't want anything to do with you. So she's one of those mothers that for the last 30 years, she sends me snail hate mail and tell me what awful daughter I am. She'll get like a card and she'll say, I can't find a card that describes you because you're a horrible monster of a daughter. So she'll cross it out and she'll just say, love mom on it. And she does that to every one of us. There's 4 of us. People always say, I can't imagine parents being so awful, which pisses me off because there are people that are that horrible that do things to their children. And it's like she gets her jollies off of doing this to us. So I tell my siblings, stop talking to her. She's evil. Don't talk to her. And my brother just says, I want a mom and I want a dad. And he's the one that murdered his best friend when he was high. And when we were growing up, we weren't close because he would steal all my stuff and my parents would give him everything on a silver platter and I had to work for everything. And so in a way I was like, deserves it right. You were such a spoiled child and you got everything. But in the end, I was like his mother and I supported him when he got out of prison. He was in the same job for like 20 years until he hurt his back and then he got hooked on Oxycontin. Then he was in and out of prison and he just lost his house. He's owned his house for 20 years and he just lost it to foreclosure. And so I just like to explain like his psychosis. Like I'd call the police, I'd call everybody for help and they would tell me, just as long as he can have a conversation, he's normal and we can't do anything about it. I'm telling him he's not normal. You guys are going to kill him. He's a Mexican dark-skinned male and you guys are going to shoot him and kill him. And they wouldn't do anything. So sure enough, they shot up his house with like 24 gas thingies and they made him strip naked and sent a dog after him. When they know that he's psychotic and have mental issues, it just, the police system just makes me so angry. So then, I'm sorry, I got ADHD, so I'm gonna go back and forth. So my sister was 16, and all of us have like super bad anger issues, just like snap, and we're gone. Our anger is just out of control, rage. And so my sister, I shared a bedroom with her and we were never friends. She was like one of my biggest bullies. And that's another thing. My parents were my biggest bullies. I couldn't keep my room clean and my mom would just say, you're such a disaster. Shut your room. I don't want to look at your mess. Instead of helping me clean it up. And then my oldest brother would tell me, if your head wasn't attached, you would lose it too, which is the story of my life. So here, 7, 8-year-old can see that his sister is in a crisis. Her head is not attached. She can't find anything. And my mom would just shame and blame and humiliate me instead of getting me help. And then my mom would tell me, you're the most miserable person to be around. Everything hurts your ears and tastes bad and smells bad and everything hurts your skin and you won't wear this. And I had eczema growing up. So all the stuff hurt my skin and I was just like a big mess with eczema. And every night I'd have to get the courage to go ask her to wrap my arms because if she did it, they would just be raw from itching at them. And she'd just like, oh, why can't you do this yourself? You're such a pain. Why don't you just grow up? And my whole childhood, I had to beg to ask her to simply put things on my arm to protect me. Then, so I was in 15-year-old All-Stars, and I had to get up in the morning early to go practice because it was too hot in the afternoon. So my sister would be in the bathroom, and I'd be banging on it, tell her to open the door, and she wouldn't. So, you could get a end of a fork and open the lock. So I'd open it up, and she was naked, and she had contacts in her hand, and she was trying to flush them down the sink. And usually she's combative, and yell and scream, call each other names. So I'm like, what are you doing? And she's telling me, like, they told me to flush the contacts down the sink. They're evil. I'm evil. I'm a sinner. And that's how she talked the whole time. I'd ask her a question and she'd just be monotone. So I'm trying to get the contacts, and then I'm yelling at my mom to come help. And then all you know is they took her away, and they took her, and then I went to practice. And she was acting like the weeks before, she would just sit in bed with her legs crossed, and she'd be reading the Bible and talking to herself. But like in that tone, she'd read the Bible and just talk back to herself. So anybody knows there's something wrong with her. But here I am, a 15-year-old, having to be an adult and tell my mom, there's something wrong with my sister. Yeah, I hate her guts, but go help my sister. Something's wrong with her. Go help her. And my mom would say, we don't have insurance. Your dad doesn't want to do anything. We can't do anything. So she had that first incident, and I'm begging my mom, there's something wrong with her. Do something. And she won't. And then, I don't know, a couple weeks later, again, she's locked in the bathroom. So I'm banging, and I go get the fork. She's completely naked. She's got my big, huge bottle of powder, talcum powder, and she's poured it over her head. And I'm asking her what's wrong, and she's just like, I'm a sinner. I'm evil. They're telling me I'm a sinner and I need to get rid of all my sins. And so every time you just talk to her, everything was about being a sinner and how evil she is, and she had to cleanse herself. So again, I go get my mom and beg her to go do something. And I go off to practice, and she's just a zombie walking around, and she's not combative like she normally is, and she'll talk to you, but she's always saying these voices are telling her this and the voices are telling her that she's evil and stuff. So finally, when I got back from practice, my mom told me, go tell your sister that we're going to go on vacation. And I'm like, what does that mean? And she says, well, we're going to go to the hospital, but I don't want you to tell her that. I want you just to tell her that we're going on vacation. And I'm like, I'm a child and you're making me do this? So I have to go tell my sister. And she literally packed up her whole bedroom. And there was like, my brother's friend was there who had a car just like my mom. And she was packing all her stuff into this guy's car. And I'd tell her that's not mom's car's over there. And so I'd have to take her stuff and put it in my mom's car. And it was just full of crap. When I kept telling her, okay, you have enough. Let's go. We have to go on vacation. Let's go. So I'm throwing stuff out of there so there's room for me to go in there and her to go. So then we went to the hospital. And I think they must have medicated her because I don't know, Baker Act, whatever. I think she didn't go in there voluntarily. She's a child. I'm sure she didn't have the right to do that. But so she went in there and we couldn't see her. And then when we finally were able to see her, the first couple times she'd just sit there like a zombie and she would talk to us. And then my mom got a call that we had to go to the hospital. And we get there, she's just throwing things around and she's being super violent and saying that she's not going to go on the drugs because they make her a zombie and she refuses to take the medication and she's calling everybody in the hospital crazy. And she's saying that she's not crazy and there's nothing wrong with her. And so they then would come home and my dad would come home from work and say, is she still in the hospital? Is that crazy girl still in the hospital? You know how much money this is costing me? You need to go in there. You need to go get her out of the hospital. So my mom would go and tell my sister, you have to take your medication. You know how much this is costing you and your dad's mad. And they're not going to release you until you take your medication. And she's just furious, saying that she's not going to take the medication. So finally, we convinced her to take the medication. And I don't remember how long, but they said she had to be on stable for a couple of days before they would release her. So then when they released her, she refused to take the medication. And then another thing, the doctors told us that they weren't going to release her because our household was so toxic that it was making my sister sick. And they told us that my parents had to separate before they were to release my sister. So my mom had to file for a divorce, and then we moved to an apartment. All of us kids, there were 3 of us, moved to an apartment. But they went to court. My mom got the house and child support and alimony. But she says, I didn't marry your dad for money, so I'm not going to take anything. We're just going to go live in this house and we're going to live like we're poor. And this is what my mom did, was just like guilt us our entire life. And then I remember when I was 12, I had a paperwork out until I was 10. And I would tell my mom about 12, I'd start telling her, Mom, I saved up all this money. Can we move out and I'll pay the rent? I tell my mom I couldn't do it anymore. And my mom would just humiliate me and like, how am I supposed to pay the rent with your paper route money? And for a parent not to know what damage that they're doing to the 4 kids. And my mom everything was about money. I don't have any money. How am I supposed to do this? And then when my dad was on his deathbed, I told her something like she was the cause of all of our mental health issues. And I told her, I've been begging you to move out since we were 12. And she says, oh, you didn't ask me until I was 15. And I'm like, I don't care how old I was. You shouldn't have been putting us through that. It was your job to protect us as kids. So that's kind of like when I was 25, I moved out. So my whole life they would tell me, if you don't want to follow the rules, then just leave. So my brother started running away when he was like 12. He was constantly running away. So my parents, mostly my mom, would tell me, if you don't like the rules, then you could just move out. So from 12 on, I was saving my money so I could move out when I was 17 is when I graduated. So when I was 17, I moved out because I could not live in that household anymore. I can't remember what I was going to say.
It's okay. Take your time. It's okay.
So,
Yeah. Take a breath.
So we moved out. So my sister was a year older than me, and so she was class valedictorian. So she would say that she wasn't going to take the drugs because it numbed her, and she couldn't think, and she wanted to be the valedictorian. That's why she was saying she wouldn't take the medication. And then also to go back, I remember I could never read. I was beg my brothers and sister to read to me, and my sister was just horrible. She'd make fun of me and just tell me, read yourself, read it yourself. Why do I have to do it for you? And I tell her, I can't read. I can't read. Will you read this to me? And she just makes fun of me. And then when I went to first grade, the teacher was making me read, and I couldn't read. She had this big yardstick, and she would hit me on the back of the chair and tell me, read, read, I want you to read. And I couldn't read. So I was in reading from first grade until sixth grade because I couldn't read. Nell knew I was in reading class, and it wasn't until I was in outpatient treatment I figured out that I'm dyslexic. I can't read because I'm dyslexic, and I couldn't do math. Now I find out that I'm dyscalculia. I'd count on my fingers, and I couldn't. My mom would ask me what time it is. I could not tell what time it is, and now I know it's because I have dyscalculia. So the best thing was when those digital clocks came, when they'd flip and they'd have a number. So that's the only way I could tell time, because it would flip and then I could tell what the time was. But I couldn't tell time on an analog clock. And I couldn't memorize my alphabet. Like, people would say it backwards, and I just couldn't do it. So my mom would just make fun of me, and I would pronounce all my words, try to say my words, and my mom would just humiliate me and tell me, that's not how you read. Why can't you just do it? It was so funny, and she'd always say, because of you kids, I wanted to be a teacher, and I can't be a teacher. And just the way she treated me my whole entire life. And I'm like, witch, you're awful. I had learning disabilities my whole life, and you treated me this way? And, yeah, so then after sixth grade, they just moved me on to seventh grade. I could never read. So I always got super good scores, but it was because I'd go home and I'd lock myself in my bedroom and I'd read it over and over and over, trying to comprehend what I was reading. And now I know why. It's because my dyslexic, I was reading the words wrong and they didn't make any sense. So I'd read something, it just didn't make sense because I didn't have the words right. And then another thing, I figured out so many things in intensive outpatient. So when people say things to me, I can't understand what they say. And so they say something and the word doesn't make sense. So I have to go back and put in a word so that it makes sense. I'm like, oh, that's what they were saying. So then by whatever they said later on, I don't know what they said because I'm still trying to figure out what they said in the first place. So I figure out I have audio processing disorder. So I don't hear my words right. So when people talk to me, it doesn't make sense. So then COVID-19 came around and my brain just blew up because people's mask, and I couldn't understand what people were saying with their mask on. And I didn't put it together again until I was in outpatient treatment. And I'm just like, I can't understand what these people are saying. And so then back to my sister. So she went off to college, and I really didn't have anything to do with her. And then I graduated when I was 17. I moved out, so I just didn't have anything to do with my sister. And then in her senior year, she came back to our hometown, and I was working and I lived someplace else. So I drive down the main street of our city, and she'd be standing on the street corner with a Bible saying, you're a sinner, you're going to go to hell, you need to repent, lightning's going to strike you. I mean, it was so embarrassing. So I'd go tell my mom, your daughter's on the street corner preaching. So we'd go get my brother, and we'd literally kidnap her off the street and put her in a car and take her away. And then we'd go all to work, and I'd come out back to work, and she'd be there doing it again. I tell my mom, you need to go get her treatment. And my mom would she's stupid. So it was during spring break. So then at the end of the week, there were people that were doing it with my sister. And then my sister ended up getting in this church group, and she had like one semester to go to graduate. She was in a criminology degree. and she went to California with this church group, and she's been there ever since. And she is my mother and my father put together. She had 3 kids, and she abuses those kids worse than my parents abused us. I just can't figure out how people repeat those. So I said, well, my mom would always tell me I had a boyfriend and I'd spend the night with him, and she'd tell me that I was a slut and that he was only using me for sex. And I forgot what I was to say. I forgot what I was going to say, but here's another point. So my mom would just tell us our whole life that boys were there to have sex and boys would never like you. And then when I was 55 years old, this woman kept emailing me on Facebook asking me to respond, and I wouldn't. I'm like, who is this stupid person? And they kept email messaging me and commenting on my pictures. So I was just about ready to delete her. And then she says, could you be my sister? And then she posts a picture, and it's a spitting image of my mother. Like, what the fuck? So she said she was given away for adoption in San Antonio, where my mom was. Then she says, I think my dad was in the military, and my dad was in the military. So she had it all down. So I call my mom and ask her. Of course, she says, oh, you're a liar. You always make everything up. Well, that's another thing. I was a scapegoat. Everything was my problem, and I was the cause of all the family problems. So I hadn't talked to her in like 30 years. She sends me snail mail telling me how I'm still the cause of all the problems, yet I haven't talked to her in 30 years. So then when I was 19, I went to my mom's reunion. And our entire life, my mom would tell us that our mom and dad died young, and that we didn't have parents, and she didn't have any brothers and sisters. And she would never talk about them. And then one time, somebody called. I was still living at home, so I had to have been about 15. And some guy called, and he said his name was Jesus. And he was my mom's brother. So I tell my mom, Jesus called and he says it's your brother. My mom just was pissed. I don't have a brother, and it's not Jesus, it's Jesus or whatever. So she denied it. And then, so when I was 19, I went to my mom's reunion. And then lo and behold, I meet her brother. And one day my mom was crying. So I asked her friend, and they talked Mex text. And we were not allowed. My dad was racist. My mom's full-blooded Mexican, and we were not allowed to eat Mexican food or talk Spanish, Mexican in our house. So I don't know anything about Spanish. So my mom's friend was talking Mex text, so I could kind of understand what they were saying, but not really. So I asked my mom, what's going on? And she said that my mom's dad had just died. I go, what do you mean? He's been dead our entire life. What do you mean he just died? And she said, no, so she told me that he shot his wife and then he fled to Mexico. And I'm like, what? So I guess my mom never wanted to tell us that. So then another day my mom was crying, and I asked again, what's going on? And my mom never cried. I mean, she's like the worst witch. So seeing her cry, I'm like, whoa, my mom's never cried in her life. So another time she was crying, and I asked why she crying. And then they said, so-and-so just brought up that your mom gave a child up for adoption. So that person's asking about that. I'm like, why would somebody ever bring this up? So I went home and I told my family, Mom had a child and she gave it up for adoption. And they're all like, oh, baloney, Kathy, you always make up these stories. So I just went out of my head. And then, so when I'm 55, this woman contacts me. And so sure enough, it's my full-blooded sister. And my family was already dysfunctional, toxic, and my mom was. So I didn't talk to her. So my family is saying that she can't get out of bed, and she's so mad that her secret got, I mean, she was like 85 years old to find out that your child that you gave up for adoption is now wanting to speak with you. And then my sister just kept saying, I need to talk to your mom. I want to do is tell your mom that I turned out okay. And I'm telling her, you're lucky that you went and got adoption. My family was hell. My whole life I was asking my mom. So this is another thing. Since like 12, I'd ask my mom to put me in foster home or give me up for adoption. I couldn't live that way anymore. My mom would just say, oh, you think a foster home's going to be better than this? At least you got a roof over your head. So this woman was just like adamant, I got to talk to your mom. And I'm like telling her, you know what you just did to our family? My family's already dysfunctional, and now you're coming into my family. So she's contacting all my brothers and sisters. And my other brother just would not talk to her, and he's like, bullshit. And my sister's like, yeah, who cares? But, you know, get out of my life. And so my mom, of course she took it bad, but I'm like, I don't give a shit. You're such a horrible parent to me. And I'm like, okay, it's found out. She's your daughter. I mean, I don't expect my mom to accept her. I don't expect my mom to talk to her, but this woman kept saying, I'm going to go where your mom lives, and I'm going to go talk to your mom. And I'm telling her, stop it. My mom's already in a bad position, and my mom's a monster. Just leave her alone. And this woman was just like, I have every right to. And I'm like, yeah, you do. But you know what? My family's already bad enough. And now you're bringing this into our life. You don't need to do this. Then to find out she's ADHD and autistic too. And so she would have been the first sibling. So she's like a spitting image of me, which is kind of scary. But I ended up blocking her because, I mean, just the entitlement that just because you're my sister that you have the right to go in. So I kind of want to advocate that for other people. It's like, yeah, you were given up for adoption, but if they're not looking for you, just drop it. You know how much more trauma it caused to our family. And she would say, well, like, I have all these abandonment issues. And I'm just like, you know, fine if your mother, if she was a nice person, but she had 4 more kids that she couldn't stand. So why do you want to meet this woman so bad? And then to top that off, I find out, so I asked my aunt if my parents had another child, and my aunt says, oh yeah, before they got married, your dad had another child before they got married. And I'm like, oh great, now I have 2 siblings. And then to go back to my story, my mom would tell me that I was going to get pregnant, no one was going to care about me, and then to find out that she had at the time, I didn't know that she'd given a child up for adoption. Now just to look back and just think, the way you treated me and called me a slut because I was sleeping with my boyfriend when I was 18 years old. I mean, it just shows you how this is. Some people are just not equipped to be a parent. So,
hey, Kathy, you've unpacked.
Babe, your microphone.
Oh, hold on. Let's I don't know why it does that. Hold on.
So I'm just going to say this while he's looking to fix that, and hopefully the professionals can chime in. Last thing I want to do is give an excuse like to your mother, but I feel like you need to know that it sounds like she was incapable of loving you, and hopefully now at your age you have realized you're worthy of love, and you were lovable, but that she, you know, I don't know, because like I said, I don't want it to seem like I'm giving an excuse for a mother, so I'll let you.
No, you're right. Just because someone gets the title mother doesn't make them a mother. And you got cheated of having a mother, Kathy, that you want so desperately. I see that, and I'm just hugging you, and I'm so sorry.
And Bob and I are talking about, because there's some people who saying they want to reach out. And
yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. You know, you've unpacked a lot here today. And I you know, I don't know how often, if you ever talk about this, and I'm concerned I want to make sure you have somebody to talk to when you're off this live. All right. I don't want, you're not alone.
And I
Okay?
did share my email. I will help her get resourced to people in her area. So, Kathy, I sent my email. Send me an email, and I will absolutely do whatever I can to help you get set up with somebody.
And Kathy, put your email in the private chat as well. But Bob and I have decided we're going to, we'll have to ask you guys which social media. I feel like Facebook's the easiest, but that's like, because that's where I used to go all the time before I stopped social media, to set up a private group of the people here that want to continue to talk to each other and share with each other, because this is such an emotional outpouring that, like Bob's saying, we don't want to just leave people with no continued support. So we're going to figure out something for that as well. So that you've got this private space that only people can get in there, that, Bob and I have, or whoever we set up to help us with this, like, approved, and we're part of this, or want to be part of this, and we can't leave you guys alone.
Because Kathy's story really is so beautifully, I don't mean beautifully in terms of I am so sorry for what you went through, but really shows how layered trauma is, from both the trauma we experience, but the vicarious trauma of the things that we're seeing around us, because we live in a context. We don't live in a vacuum.
So I'll make it quick. I want to tie the two things back. So I was going through a toxic workplace at my work, and I was saying I'm having anxiety and depression, and they would just tell me, you're disorganized, you can't communicate, and you can't manage your time. And I knew in my head I was doing the work of 5 people, and that's what they would come back every single time, was that. And I was confused because I knew I was, but at work I wasn't. At work, my desk was a mess, but I could get my job done, and I have an IT background and I can automate everything. So they wouldn't help me. So then I had a nervous breakdown, and then I started using the word, I'm in a mental health crisis. So I sent a message to the superintendent, and his response was, if you're sick. I told him I wanted to talk to him, and he said that I gave him an ultimatum. He told me, I wrote it down in a 10-page thing, and he said, that's not how this works. And then I had 400 hours of leave, and he says, he told me I'm abusing my leave. So basically he didn't do anything for 3 years. Then I was put under investigation. But so he told me to stop roaming around mental illness because he's got a long history of mental illness. So he was basically telling me, since my mental illness didn't compare to him, to shut the F up. And this is an employer. So I just want, because I'm speaking out so that employers know, stop doing this to your employees. And there's federal laws about discrimination. And they didn't write the laws. There was he worked for the governor, and the governor gave an executive order to do this. And they didn't write those policies. And I kept asking them where those policies were. So after they put me under investigation, then they implemented some of those laws, and the reasonable accommodation, they never did update it. So anyway, so they demoted me, and they wouldn't let me put me on. They told me that I could resign or they were going to terminate me. And I told them, yeah, go ahead and terminate me because I'm not signing this. And then they were forced to give me PFMLA. And then when I returned, they demoted me. So anyway, so a year later, I was going through the same crisis. They still weren't doing anything. So I checked into the intensive outpatient treatment, and I would just like to tell people what it was like. And again, this is during COVID-19, so it should have been inpatient, but we were just on the computer. And what it was just talking about mental illness and how to take meds. And I can't remember, I mean, these people are on here. So it was just all the things that could be wrong with your body and how your brain works. And so here I'm in a mental health crisis. I can't stop thinking, and I'm supposed to pay attention to what they're teaching us. So I thought it was going to be in there and we'd talk about what our issues are, but it wasn't. It was like education of all of the things that could be wrong with you. So they were talking about executive dysfunction. So after the thing, I told the counselor, I said, so this is what they're calling one-on-one is there's a counselor that teaches these class and they're telling you that that's a one-on-one. So unless you set up an appointment, and if you get an appointment, so I set up an appointment and I told her, all of these executive functioning, my brain does not do any of these. I have no memory. I can't I'm disorganized. I can't remember what they are, but I can't do any of these. I've never done any of these my whole entire life. And then she told me, well, you're probably ADHD and you're in paralysis. You can't think because your work won't give you any help. And I'm like, yeah. And I was simply asking for them to give me a position description and expectations, which is mandatory by the law. And they would not give that to me because then they forced me to do my supervisor's job. So anyways, and then the next one, they were talking about your senses. And then I told the lady, I've been told that 10 years ago, I found a book that says that I'm a highly sensitive person. All of this stuff is jacked up for me. And then she told me, well, you're probably autistic. And then again, they told me, we're not your provider. You're out of network. So you need to go to your doctor. So I went to my doctor and they told me they don't diagnose autism. So I got no help. And then, so I was under investigation the second time and they wouldn't listen to me. Let's see, how do I explain this? So I'd be in a meeting asking for help and these images would come in my head, like my perpetrators with their head blowing off. And I'd like shake it off because I didn't want these in my head. I'm like, oh, what's going on? And so I'm in these meetings begging for them to give me help, allowing me to stop working because I couldn't work. And they were telling me, no, you need to go to work. And these images would just, whoever was talking to me, like their head would just blow off. And I'm like, what's that? And then finally in one of the meetings, I mean, I was having thoughts of her head blowing off. And in the meeting, I finally told her, now I understand why Kelty jumped off the 19th story. So she's like, oh, you're suicidal. Oh, you're suicidal. So they made me talk to a counselor, but I had to return to work the next on Monday. They made me return to work and they did nothing about it. And then they lied on paperwork and said that I was going to kill my coworkers. So then I went through an investigation and I knew I was going to get terminated because they wouldn't listen to me. So I checked into the mental hospital. So here's another thing. So in 2021, I wanted to check into the mental hospital and they told me there's no beds, that you have to go to the emergency room and you have to sit there until a bed opens. So that's how you get treatment. You have to sit there. And I said, well, how long is it? And she said, I don't know. It could be 1 day to 3 days to whatever. You need to sit there and then that will hold your spot. And that's how you're going to get into the mental hospital. I'm like, I can't even function. And I have to sit in the emergency room. And she's like, yeah, that's the only way you can get in. So I was calling up my doctors, telling them that I was having a heart attack, and I was telling them that I can't think. I think I have Alzheimer's. I can't remember anything. And they're just like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. What's going on in your life? Are you? I'm telling them I'm getting fired. I'm under all these investigations. They're like, oh, yeah, it's just anxiety here. Take these medications. So like they're saying they just push these medications on me. So then I enter into the mental hospital. And I literally so they told me, so I was drinking a lot because it was the only way I could cope. So they told me, one, I couldn't get in there unless I quit drinking for like a week. And then, so I got in there. So I kept calling the emergency line and I would tell them, I haven't taken a shower in like 2 weeks and I don't brush my teeth and I can't take care of myself and I can't pick up my dog's poop. I can't pay my bills. And the person on the counselor line just told me, what do you mean you can't brush your teeth? Go brush your teeth. And like, I could get up and like go brush my teeth when she told me that. And I'm like, well, yeah, when you're telling me to do that, I can do that. but I don't have anybody sitting in my house telling me to go do that. It's not like I don't want to do that. I just can't get my brain to go do that. And then she's like, well, there's nothing wrong with you. If you can get up and brush your teeth, there's nothing wrong with you. And I'm telling her, lady, I haven't brushed my teeth in a week. I've been taking a shower in 2 weeks. I want to do it, but I can't do it. And she's like, well, there's something wrong with you. Well, she'd say, well, there's something wrong with you, but something's not right if you can go get it and do it now. So if one of the counselors can explain that. But yeah, I wanted to, I just couldn't do it. So, so my toilet was backed up and I didn't have the capacity to call someone to fix my toilet. So this is embarrassing. I was pooping in a 5-gallon bucket. So I told the counselor, I can't call anybody for help. I mean, I'm pooping in these 5-gallon buckets. And then I checked in the mental hospital and they told me, well, you can't come into the mental hospital unless you agree to not spread poop all over the walls. I'm like, I never said I was going to spread poop against the wall, so I don't know if that's why they let me in. But so everywhere I went, they would say, are you still spreading poop on the walls? And I'm like, it's not what I said. So then you check in, they give you a blood test. So they wanted to see what I was on. And I don't know, to see if I was drinking or what, but they gave me a blood test. And then I talked to the psychiatrist for no more than 15 minutes. And they just like give you your background and what's going on with you. And the reason I checked in was because I kept calling for help and they kept telling me, our psychiatrists are booked for 9 months. So we can't test you for ADHD or autism for 9 months. Anyway, we don't even test for autism, but we can't test you for ADHD for 9 months. So the only way you can see a psychiatrist is if you check into the mental hospital. So I checked into the mental hospital and I'm like, when am I going to get my testing? When am I going to get my testing? And they're like, oh, what are you talking about? We're not going to give you any testing. So now listening to Lindsay, it makes me wonder if they ever got the paperwork from the outpatient treatment. So then again, the mental hospital was just like outpatient treatment. You just go to all these classes and they talk about mental illness and you just sit there. I mean, you can ask questions if you want, but it's not a one-on-one. And
Kathy, can I intervene for a second? Because I think you're saying something that most people don't know. My name is Samantha, by the way. You're right. When people go into mental institutions like Lindsay did, like you're describing, primarily that's just for medical stabilization. So that's for medicine. But most people don't know that. And they're not describing that well in the trial either. So, this idea that you get therapy or you go to groups, you go to education groups, as you're pointing out, but they're not actually really therapeutic groups, right? They're not even probably as therapeutic as what you're experiencing here with all of us. So, and I very much appreciate you being willing to share so much. It's beautiful. I'm watching the chat and I see everybody is just really moved by your story and your sharing. So I very much appreciate that.
So it makes me mad listening to them saying, oh, she had all this treatment. No, she didn't. And it makes me so mad that that's what they think treatment is. So we would go to these classes where we'd meditate. And then the guy would say, and he was just a pompous ass, he'd say, like, so how did everybody do in your meditation? And I'd say, meditation? How are you supposed to meditation? My brain is just ruminating, and I'm just thinking of what I coulda, shoulda. How am I going to save my job? I'm single, and I'm responsible for my 2 dogs and my house payment. It's just me. How am I supposed to meditate? And he's just like, oh, that's normal. Most people can't meditate. So I think like every single day we went to meditation, and every single day I'm telling these people, I can't think, I can't meditate. My brain will not shut off. I just think over and over, and they're just like, oh, that's normal. And it's infuriating.
Yeah, Kathy, can I jump in really quick? I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, you're fine.
I want to speak to what you're saying, because to add on to what I was mentioning about, anti-punishment, anti-carceral mental health, the most common thing I hear from neurodivergent people is how much they struggle when they go inpatient because the system itself is not designed for people like us that are neurodivergent. The lights are loud, there's people watching us all the time, and while people do mean well, going to the hospital isn't like the like magic fix all that society kind of like makes it out to be. So I just really want to like validate that your experience of like really struggling with that is unfortunately not uncommon.
Not at all.
Yeah, so I go in on the first day and they put me right next to the door where people are going in and out all the time. And then there's a patient next door that's screaming and yelling all night long. And I was furious. I'm like, I'm in here because I can't sleep. I haven't slept in years. And you put me next to a patient that's screaming all night long.
Mm-hmm.
And I was furious. And I'm passive and I'm taught to not speak up for myself because I'm neurodivergent and we complain about everything. So finally, the next day I got up and I told the nurses, that door slams every couple minutes. There's a person screaming next to me all night long. How am I supposed to sleep? So they ended up moving me and putting me into a more quieter place. But you can't sleep. And here they are every 15 minutes. Somebody said this. Every 15 minutes, they're checking on you. So I'm just falling asleep. And they're opening my door and it's slamming shut. And I'm supposed to sleep? It was so infuriating.
Well, Kathy, I definitely want, you got to make sure you give us your email or something, because a lot of people are sending their phone numbers or their emails so that you can have that, you know, like someone to continue to talk to. And Crystal said she would help you after this. So I just want to make sure you don't forget to stick it in the private chat.
Yeah, and Kathy, I in the private chat, I added you. There's a number to a friend that's heard your story that wants to be your friend. She wants to be able to talk with you. She's a hospice nurse, but she's feeling everything that you're saying. So go into that private chat. Her phone number's in there. Her
She's
email.
not the only one. I've got a couple people here too as well.
Yeah, I just want you to promise me.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Let her finish. You can finish your story.
I just want you to promise me you're going to reach out to somebody after this. I'm concerned. Like I said, you've unpacked a lot.
So every time we'd go to these group meetings, I'd say, when am I going to meet the psychiatrist? When am I going to be assessed? And they're like, we don't do that here. Like, what do you mean you don't do that? I was told that if I checked in, that they would give me tests. So that's another thing. Like all of those psychiatrists, I'm thinking, damn, Lindsay got way more better care than I did. I never filled all of those questionnaires that she filled out. I was in the outpatient treatment for 14 days and inpatient for 7. I never filled out those questionnaires. It just infuriates me that I'm in there for help. And Samantha's right. So I'm figured out now that their purpose is just to make you a zombie so that they can check you out.
Right.
And so I'm not speaking to anybody yet. So you go and you check out for your meds. So I go check out my meds. And they're giving me more prescriptions. I'm like, what is this? Why are you giving me this? I haven't even spoke to a doctor. And they just keep, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, I couldn't even think straight. So I don't know what they were doing my meds, but it was more than before. When I went in there, all I was on was whatever that leather lady, fake Zoloft. So I was started with like 25 milligrams. And by the time I went into the mental hospital, I was on 200 milligrams. It did absolutely nothing for me. And I kept telling them, I feel nothing. It doesn't absolutely nothing for me. My brain is so anyway, so they kept giving me more drugs. And I mean, I was kind of advocating for myself, but I wasn't. I'm like, okay, this is a hospital. They know what they're doing. So I just take the medication. And then one night I had, maybe on my 4th day, I had night horrors. So if I'm saying the wrong words, tell me. I was having dreams that people were killing me and I was killing them. And I felt like I was screaming and I was kicking my blankets up and down. And I couldn't stop. And I'm like, you want them to stop and they won't stop. And like, I want to scream, but I feel like I can't scream. And it felt like it was going on for hours. And I finally, the nurse station was way far away. And I was laying on the floor and I dragged myself crawling to the nurse's station. I remember being able to stand up, and then there's like this ottoman, and I fell down on this ottoman, and I was like perfectly straight, and they're yelling at me, sit down, straighten up, sit down. And I was just like perfectly straight. And they were trying to pick me up. I'm big and tall, and they couldn't pick me up, and they're just like, you need to sit down, you need to sit down. And I was like still in that dream, like I was like scared, but now I knew that there was someone to help me, and I could hear these people talking to me, but I couldn't talk back. And they were like furious. I could hear them yelling at me, snap out of it, snap out of it. Wake up, wake up. So I don't know what I was doing, but then all of a sudden, one of the nurses goes, okay, Kathy, we're going to breathe. One, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And then she started doing that. And then that's when I snapped out of it. I could, oh no, it's like I brought my brain back, and that's the only way that I could snap out of it. And then the nurse is like, okay, you're fine now. Let's go take you back to your bed. And I was like, what's the word? Terrorized, horrified. I didn't want to be alone. And every couple minutes they kept saying, can we go take you back to your room? And I'm like, I couldn't talk. And I'm like, no. I don't know how long I sat there, but they just kept telling me, you need to go back to your room. And I wouldn't go back. So I don't know when I was able to finally talk, but not one person asked me what happened. At night, I went to get my medication, and they wanted to give it to me again. And I said, no way in hell am I going to take that again. And the nurse said, oh yeah, I wouldn't either. And she said, all we can do is offer you meds. We can't make you take them. And I was just pissed off that not one person asked me about what happened. And I want to go back further, like in 2020, when 9/11, I call it Y2K. I was in IT and it was Y2K, and I was having interstitial cystitis, which means you have to pee like every 5
Kathy,
minutes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm looking at the chat, and I know that some of our guests have their chats in here. I don't know if you just didn't look and see what this live's about, but Brian, I'm calling you out specifically. Knock it the fuck off. Go out and see what the thing's about. These are people sharing incredibly personal, incredibly painful stories, and you're sitting in my chat acting like an asshole. So knock it the fuck off, or we're timing you out. This isn't a joke. If you don't know what the live is, then go out and read the description before you come in here acting like a fool. This isn't a joking matter. And anybody else that's going to derail it, I'm not having it. You know, you come in here on a different day, I'm all about it. This isn't the day for it. If I haven't made myself clear, just let me know. I'm sorry, Kathy. Finish up.
So it just makes me mad when people say, you know, she wasn't taking her medication, or they say, oh, just like some people will say, like it takes 6 to 8 weeks for the medication to kick in. So I have interstitial cystitis, so they were putting me on all this anxiety medication. And I was having these dreams before 9/11 happened. Was having these dreams that I was flying planes into big buildings. It wasn't the buildings, but I was having these dreams that I was flying, and then I was having these dreams that I was killing all of my coworkers I absolutely loved, my best friends. I was killing them. And I would literally go into work and I would peek around in their cubicle and go, oh, they're
still
alive.
alive.
It's just a dream. I cannot tell reality from a dream. And then again, the doctors have like explained it. It's like when I'd sleep, I would get like, you would get to this one place where you knew the dreams were going to start to happen, the night tours or whatever they were. You could feel that they were going to happen. Like you're so exhausted that you need to sleep, but you just get into this one place and that you can feel when you hit it, your just body just starts shaking and you can, they like start immediately. It's just not like they work into it. Immediately, whenever I got into that state, I was killing people and they were killing me. And I couldn't tell if it was real or not. Like, so once I got there, I'm like, I knew it was dreaming, but when you're in there, you don't know if it's a dream. You don't know if it's a nightmare or what. So literally, so I probably did that for 3 months or something. Then finally, I told my neighbor, they had invited me to dinner, and I told him, I'm having these dreams like I'm killing everybody. And he's like, you need to get off that now. Medication does that to somebody. Nobody ever told me that that was a side effect. My doctors never checked in on me, and so I quit taking it. So it's horrible that people aren't told this, that there's not more education out there. So when they started giving me the anxiety medication again, I told them, you know what, the last time I took them, I had really bad side effects. I was having these, I call them night horrors. I don't know what the term was. And they didn't care. So they gave me the Zoloft, and just everything that they gave me, nothing ever worked. And then, so I would see, so I guess the people that were giving the education, one of them would be your person. And then, so I saw that person twice. I saw him like 3 days in before I had that night tour. And then he would tell me, Kathy, you're not going to get better. Your employer does not care about you. They don't care about your mental health. All they want to do is fire you no matter what you do. Because I kept saying, I could have did this and I should have done this. And it's my fault that I'm getting fired. And then they're telling me, no, it's not your fault. And nobody had ever told me this. I was going to a counselor. So they never told me this. She told me, you have to quit your job. Or it was a he. You have to quit your job. You're not going to get any better. You're just subjected to this. You have to stop. You have to quit your job. And I'm like, but I'm single and I own a house, and who's going to make my payments? I can't quit my job. So finally, when I was in there, the best thing that happened was they convinced me that I wasn't going to get better unless I quit my job.
Oh.
So I did have to quit my job. Yeah, so then you're really not allowed to talk to other people unless you're in these sessions. You're not allowed to go to their room. Like, I wanted so bad to make a connection with somebody. So there was a woman I made a connection with, and I went to her room, and immediately they came over and said, you can't get into people's room.
I guess that's the downside to some of these inpatient facilities. But you know, Kathy, like I said, before you leave us, you've got to give us your email. There's a lot of people that want to reach out. We'll put it all in one email so that you have it. And we are going to start this group. I've already put out a poll to see if Facebook or Discord is where people want it. And if you don't care, either one works for you, say, I don't care. And we'll set it up. But thank you so much for sharing. And
Can I make just one more comment, and then I'll stop. So, so they discharged me, and like somebody was saying, they just discharge you and you're on your own. So when they discharged me, they made a plan, and then they're required to give you a psychiatrist. So I did get a psychiatrist when I got out, but I didn't see her for like a month. So I went in and I told her I was in outpatient treatment, and they told me that I have ADHD and autism, and I need to get evaluated. What do I need to get evaluated for that? And again, she says, oh, we don't do autism. And then she said, it takes 6 to 8 months to diagnose you with ADHD. And so when you go in there and ask the questionnaire, they ask if you're S a while or A a while. So I had been denying it. So this is another thing. So I denied it. I was having all these dreams and I denied it. I didn't want them to tell my employer so that I would get fired. So I didn't tell anybody about this. So yeah, so I went through all this. I didn't tell anybody I was having all these thoughts. So I quit my job. So I didn't already have a job. So I didn't care if they told my employer. So she asked the question and I said, yeah. And her answer was, it's not for the Kaiser staff, is it? And I was so pissed off because it was. I'm like, every one of you freaking people failed me. I'm begging. I'm telling you exactly what my problem was. And you guys won't diagnose me. And here I have a psychiatrist. And I told her I'm losing my job. I told her I was going to get fired. And she won't test me. I was so mad. And I had to go inpatient. They made me go in person. So luckily they gave me that questionnaire. How did your service go? And I just ripped into her, telling them that they won't give me a evaluation when I know that's what my problem is and they won't evaluate me. And then so a month later I went in and she tells me, oh, so you gave me a bad evaluation. So you're mad at me because I didn't give you a ADHD testing. Here's your paperwork. Do this testing and still it's going to take 6 to 8 months. Whoever's telling you that you can just meet once and you're going to get diagnosed is wrong. And she just kept making all these excuses why they couldn't test me. So I took the test and I scored 87 out of 100. And then she tells me, this doesn't mean you have anxiety. It doesn't mean that you have ADHD. It could be other things like trauma or PTSD or whatever this stuff. And so then I quit my job and lost my insurance, and that was the end. So I just want to make it clear on all these people that say that you can get treatment if you ask for it. I asked for treatment, and this doesn't even go 3 years earlier. I worked at DOC, and I went through 3 years of hell, the same thing. And I had to quit my job here, and then I go to another state agency. Same thing, 3 years of hell, where the same thing is you're disorganized, you can't manage your time, and it's not true. And now that I look back, it's because I was a high performer and I was a high performing my supervisors, and they didn't want to look bad. Another thing is because I'm a justice warrior with my autism and I can't keep my mouth shut. And I kept saying systemic gross mismanagement. And I would refer to the policies that they were supposed to. So I guess neurotypical people aren't that.
Yeah, there has to be more access, I guess, to disability in that venue as well, so that if you
and there's a lot of ableism, unfortunately, and lack of education by providers about neurodiversity and people who are neurodiverse and what that lived experience is like. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry the system failed you, Kathy.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Another thing.
A huge problem.
I've probably gone through 12 counselors, and I tell them my symptoms, and all of them are like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never been trained on autism. I've never been trained on ADHD. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know why you just can't do it. If you want to do it, why can't you just do it? You're just lazy. You don't want to do it. And I had this one guy, counselor, and he would tell me that neurodivergence has only been around, or autism has only been around for like 100 years. So it's new and people aren't trained on it, which just blew my mind. And he's saying, I know
for it are new, but the concept isn't new. We know that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks,
Kathy,
again.
you're right. Just to say, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you're absolutely right. Thank God for crystals of the world, because most providers have no idea what adult autism looks like. They're not trained in it, because it's something that providers train on when they are in early childhood or working with children. They're trained to try to diagnose it or to identify it, but not in the adult population. And I wound up actually, just because I had all these clients with complex mental health with 30 diagnoses, nobody knew what they were. They were schizophrenic, schizoaffective, bipolar, everything you could imagine under the sun. And it turned out that this was autism, was neurodivergence, but nobody, and I mean nobody, knows how to recognize it, knows what it means, knows what it is. It's so, so tragic. It's a huge problem in the field, and very happy to hear that, Crystal, that's something that you're doing, because it's underserved is not even the right terminology.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, Kathy. Please, as soon as you get backstage, send us your
Go into the
email.
private chat.
Yep.
I sent
Okay,
you.
So one more thing. So right now I'm with Vancouver Clinic, and they have a behavioral health thing. So I went to the doctors, and they're all saying, "Oh, you need to go to behavioral health." So I went to behavioral health, and they said, "We don't know. We don't have one person working at our behavioral health that specializes in autism. So you need to go find your help someplace else."
Wow.
So this is how bad it is. So if you look on the
It's bad.
internet, all these women that are being late diagnosed with
It's really bad.
neurodivergence, because once we hit menopause, our brain just blows up and we're no longer. So I put myself through college. I paid for my house and all this stuff. And then once I hit 55, my brain just blew up, and I couldn't take care of myself anymore. And then just to read people out there saying, "No, everybody's ADHD, everybody's autism," and
No.
the reason I'm speaking out is so that people understand
It's real.
we're just not trying to get attention.
Very real.
We're people, and there's so many people that I have to get my knowledge from all of the good YouTubers out there that are specializing in autism, because they're telling Lindsay she could go get help. I was trying to get help for like 8 years, and I could not get help. And I had Kaiser insurance for 8 years, and I could not get help with my diagnosis when somebody told me what it was, but nobody would diagnose me. And then now this new clinic, they tell me that they don't.
Yeah,
So
it's scary.
our medical
a real
system
problem.
is broken.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and hopefully Chris
Without
will
a
be able to get you some good resources. Again, I'll stick you backstage, and you can definitely put in the private chat. Thank you so much, Kathy.
Thank
Our
you.
hearts are
Thanks,
with you.
Kathy.
Kathy.
You know, it sounds like there's this thing running throughout some of the stories that we've heard today, where you've got a parent who completely abandons their child, and then it seems like that might be how we're leading to this. They're not diagnosed with autism as a child because no one's taking them for the care that they need. They're not being heard by anyone. So then you get adults, and like you guys are saying, that it's not like in the typical adult thing to be looking for, because they assume that kids got found out when they were a child, but you have all these people who no one paid attention to, cared for, or took care of as a child.
Well, and
Oh,
oftentimes what happens is when I give a diagnosis of ADHD or autism for a child, the adult is like, "Oh, wait a second, this behavior wasn't normal. This isn't the usual." And I was like, "Oh, okay, this makes so much more sense because when you are a family of neurodivergent people, all your behavior is normative because that's what you know."
right, right.
Mhm. Or
And I just
parents
wanna-
parents
wanna
don't love
throw-
the diagnosis.
I just
That
want
too,
to throw.
absolutely.
Let me jump. I just want to. If you're in Samantha's chat, because I know Samantha's streaming to a few different places, just be cognizant of what we're doing here today. All right, because like our mods can't bounce you.
Oh, is that what's happening?
I would have bounced the Brian guy a long time ago.
Somebody got him.
Yeah, somebody. I think one of Samantha's mods got him. But Samantha, just let your mods know. Just you can read a room. Like the dude, that guy was just. I don't know what he was doing, but
So
take a
Crystal-
context clue.
And
Yeah.
Sorry
Crystal,
about that.
I greatly appreciate the time that you have spent with us, and I'm so glad that luckily you stayed and can hopefully give some resources to Kathy. And I'll just stick you backstage and make sure we have your email or whatever you want us to give to her. We'll figure it out. And your book, the link for your book, and we'll make sure the mods are putting it up there. All right.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
To
Crystal.
bring
Yeah.
on with Samantha, we've got, I'm bringing on Karen. You are next because I know you need to leave. And then we have Dr. Rose and I think M. So
Karen's got 8 kids. So when
Okay.
she said
Wow,
she's got to go,
Karen.
she's got to go.
all right, Dr. Rose, are you there? Oh, see, people aren't ready because I didn't tell them.
Karen's ready.
I know Karen's ready. And then M, are you there? Because I think you're also a professional. And either one of you, Dr. Rose or M, if you guys want your cameras off, but give me a wave or put something, I guess, in the in the private chat now that I know how to read that. Oh, M's here. So I'll stick M up with us. Oh, Dr. Rose is here. All right. So we'll do this. And I know Karen doesn't have long, so I'm going to let Karen tell her story and then introduce Samantha and Dr. Rose official like. So go ahead, Karen.
It's okay.
Just wait 1 second. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Karen. I have
No,
to
don't
jump
be
off
sorry.
in 10 minutes. I just want you
Oh.
guys to know if I
Oh, go ahead.
disappear, it's because I have to
All
go do
right.
something else.
Well,
Sorry.
tell us
Thanks,
what your
Samantha.
background is real quick, Samantha. Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just pulled you up. You weren't even paying attention.
I know. I was watching the chat. I'm like in the chat. Just so sorry. Sorry, Karen.
Don't be sorry.
My background. So I've been working in mental health since, the late 1990s. Started out in substance use disorders for a very long time. And then actually kind of like what Crystal was describing, working with very complex cases. Happened completely by accident. I work in New York City. I'm a clinician in New York City as well. And I started, these things happen. We thought we opened up this new fancy clinic. We thought we were going to be substance use disorders. And of course, because of dual diagnosis, we were not substance use at all. We just wound up taking cases from mental health institutions, and they wound up being psychiatric. So I wound up, really dealing with these very complex cases for many years and became the person who could help to assess and ultimately discern what's going on with complex cases, kind of like we've been seeing even here today. So, there is a very significant mind and body component. So my background is in physiology and in how the mind and body system works together to create our perceptual experience, and then how to intervene with that knowledge and information. And one thing I want to make sure that everybody knows, because I haven't heard it, it may have come up earlier today, but the postpartum illnesses, mental health conditions, are not in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. So in order to diagnose, and I think this was important with Dr. Tufts, because she was 4 years of residency. I give her credit. 4 years is 4 years. But in mental health, I would say till you're about 11 years in, you're probably still on the greener side, right? I mean, it's a big learning curve. You're dealing with lots of clients in the beginning of your career, and you learn a tremendous amount. But that experience is critical, because the categorical model, the DSM, likes to put people in boxes. Humans don't really belong nicely in boxes. And really, it's a facade. It's a subjective situation, right? And nobody tells you that. We all want to medicalize mental health, and we want to make that easy. We want to make diagnosis easy. So we make these boxes, but they're entirely fabricated. They are entirely subjective. They are not discrete conditions the way a broken bone or, some, diabetes or cancer, God forbid. So that's important, though, because I think with Dr. Tufts, we didn't see anything about postpartum. And there's a reason, right? You have to, in order to be, and she actually made a statement that I want to point out. She said, well, in order for me to diagnose bipolar, I would have had to have seen it in front of me. And that to me was very criminal, because you have 27 minutes max, and any good psychiatrist knows you don't get enough face time with a client to be able to really know what they're doing the vast majority of the time. So you pick up the phone and you try to get as much collateral information as possible from the other providers. And I think what she did was, when she found out that Lindsay Clancy was seeing South Shore at that critical moment, oh, you're transferring your care. Now it's not my responsibility to intervene. And I've been going through the medication timeline. You guys will probably all see it at some point soon, to really try to suss out what part of this is medicine and what part of this is a likely underlying diagnostic situation. And December 1st was this critical moment in the journey, where she goes to 3 or maybe even 4 providers in the same day, or the same 2 days, 4 in 2 days, 3 in 1 day. And it's clearly a 4-alarm fire. Tufts does not catch it. They do not catch the severity of it. They're recommending a higher level of care at South Shore, but Tufts just drops the ball right there, knowing that she's seeing other providers. That is to me, that was a criminal offense. So I just wanted to say those
no, I'm
things
glad
because-
you said that, because when she said that, like when it was happening and we were live, I was like, are you effing kidding me? Like, you
It's crazy.
cannot tell me like that's normal. I'm like, I need a professional in chat. Please tell me that's not part of the thing. I got to see it with my own eyes. I'm like,
It's insane.
how the hell does that happen? And they're probably not showing up for their psych appointment if they're super
No.
manic.
Talk about not
No.
believing a patient.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Or
Right.
covering your ass. I think the other thing
Right,
too, right?
right.
These people are just covering their rear ends.
Yeah,
Mhm.
100%.
Because the poor insight gave it all away. Like, she knew. She did know. She knew from the very first visit because she tagged it, and she did not raise any alarms. And, to me, Tufts is no longer going to be working in psychiatry.
Let me ask you this
I hope
before. I'm
not.
sorry, Karen.
No, don't be sorry.
That one note, the note that she not hyper, comma, pressured speech. What do you really think? Do you think the not went to, does the hyper deal with the speech so that those all go together, or is hyperactive and pressured speech is pressured speech?
My assessment is that she was assessing her as not hyper, and that there wasn't pressured speech based on the sentence that came before.
That's
However, the thing that's the most alarming to me, you guys know this, but it freaks me out, because based on her behavior alone, no matter which of these providers we're talking about, by the way, they should have been able to see that her behavior was what was alarming, not what she was reporting. Her behavior, none of the way she was behaving was normal. There was nothing normal about it. You could feel it, you could hear it. And because she presented well, as you guys have been pointing out really nicely, because she was a nurse, because she, went home, studied the lingo, knew about half-lives and rebound anxiety, for some reason, these guys, they were either duped, or they're pretending they were duped now to cover their butts.
Right, for liability purposes.
For
That's why I was
liability
saying
purposes.
before you came on, Samantha, I've been in the courtroom. Every single provider that's been up on that stand had their lawyer or the facility's
yeah.
lawyer sitting in court. So, and I was
Right.
trying to tell people they have to understand that, like, that's going on behind the scenes in terms of
Big time.
what you're seeing in terms of the testimony, which is, it's just a thing. In terms, what they're saying and how they're
Absolutely.
responding to questions, and whether or not they're being forthright is something that frankly, I would like, and I love Reddington, and Allison pointed this out. I almost would have liked for him to dig into it more with the
Yeah.
litigation aspect of it, because he brought it up. I think it was with Gelada, and that, like, I don't even think he brought it up with Tufts. And I think it's important for the jury to know that that's going on, that exists in the courtroom.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
All right. I know,
big time.
Karen, you don't have a lot of time, so I'm sorry, you guys.
Don't be
And
sorry,
Samantha, I feel
guys.
horrible. I didn't know we were going to have that hour.
No,
before,
I know. I get
but
it.
I wish we had more time with you, honestly. So go ahead, Karen.
Hey Bob, Allie, thanks for
Karen.
donating your husband to the court for the week or the next couple of weeks. What a wild case this is, and what a beautiful thing you guys are doing by bringing attention to it. Bob and I got to speak to Lindsay's parents together the other day, and what an honor that was as well, to be able to hear, directly from them. And it was the second time I had spoken with them regarding just this in general. I lost a dear friend of mine to postpartum psychosis back in 2005. And there was no talk about this. We just went to her funeral knowing that she had a baby 13 days before, and, took her own life, and in a very, very violent way. And thankfully her child just turned 21, but I had already had a child or two at that point, and I do have 8 kids. That's not a lie. But no one talked to me about it as well. I had no idea. I can't even begin to tell you which child. My youngest is 5, my oldest is 28. I can't tell you when anyone spoke to me about postpartum depression. I actually have no recollection even 5 years ago of it. Maybe they thought I was a pro and would know at that point. I'm not a pro, but you know what I mean? It's such a a thing that no woman wants to talk about. We don't want to be told we're not good mothers. We don't want to feel like we're not good mothers. We don't even want to seem like we're not doing it right, or or have it all together. And to be honest, I remember having child number 7, the nurse coming in, who I'm now friends with, but she said, "Well, I don't even need to be in here. You know what you're doing. You're a pro." But like, that's kid number 7, right? But what if at that point was the point that I actually needed somebody? You know what I mean? And just sitting here through this trial and seeing how many times Lindsay asked for help. If you listen to her, I don't know why the Commonwealth thought it would be a great idea to bring up her journal up the other day. That wasn't for all it did was give us more insight into her real, like, when you have your phone extracted, you do not think that anyone's ever going to go through that. Your most private moments are in your phone. You're sending texts to the people that you never think would be seen, let alone in a courtroom and seen by international TV at this point. So she wasn't writing that for anybody else. Okay.
Right.
Those were her most private moments. I feel like I'm failing as a mother. And it wasn't because I didn't like my children. It was because here is number 3, and I don't feel like I can parent him like number 1. And so seeing the insight into what her thoughts were, and just talking to her parents, Bob, you remember, they said, she's so smart. This is a smart, intelligent woman who has failed on each and every level because nobody made an actual plan, because there was no plan. So that goes into my own personal story of my father, who has bipolar, who was diagnosed when I was 11. So I was a former police officer and dispatcher. My parents were both police officers. My father, at 8, when I was 11, went into psychosis out of nowhere. Now, in hindsight, there are signs leading up to it. Maybe there was some depression, but he had never been diagnosed with anything till the night that he took out his duty weapon and fired it up the stairs because he saw demons and he thought they were coming into my room and into the other rooms upstairs. And at that moment, we still didn't know what was going on because nobody talked about this kind of stuff. This is, again, same, this is 1995, 96. And all we had was, there's a cop in the house with a gun shooting it off. And oh my God, we need to protect him from other police officers coming, and what is going on and whatnot. So in hindsight, I have all this hindsight because I have now grown up with this kind of stuff. But for somebody sitting on the jury and not quite understanding what one goes through or how you can hide psychosis, I've been talking to people during the week and saying, if you were standing next to my father, and the last time he went into psychosis was 2023, I believe it was fall of 2023, because his medications are ever evolving, and you can become, they can kill you. So this thing that saves your life can also take your life. And he ended up with NMS, which off the top of my head, I cannot remember because I'm so sorry. Like, my brain at this point is like scrambled from the last couple of weeks. But it's basically the end of the commercials where it's like, if your body goes into, like, your system starts shutting down and all this stuff. He ended up in the hospital. He went off his meds and he went into psychosis. Now, if anybody else around us was talking to him, he would have seemed like a very intelligent, smart, thoughtful, caring man. Yet I'm standing there going, you didn't just work out with the Marine Corps across the street, which is a field. You weren't actually doing this or that. Like, none of that is accurate. And we watched him slowly fail. And in the course of that time, he had no plan to, have suicide. He was having thoughts every day. So let me back up. My father lives on the next street over. So I was there every day. And listening to my own dad say things like, I'm going to walk out in front, I just want to go out in front of the street and take my life. And I'm going to let a truck take me at 2 a.m. Nobody else will be able to be dark and a truck can just run me over. You can't actually say that's not a good idea because they're in a psychosis and they're very calm, and the police may not quite believe you. And you don't know if you don't know if you're actually at that level of care at that. It's such a wild experience to go through. And I'm just saying, hey, Dad, the kids live, I have all these kids and you don't really want them to go out and see that. Like, you're really trying to reason with someone unreasonable. But it got to the point where he did get hospitalized. And Kathy was right. He had to sit in an ER for 5 days, unmedicated, because at that point, they don't know what to do to manage his care. And it's just keeping this person in this space until we can find a bed for you that opens. And I live in Maine. That's 2 states from Massachusetts. But I know that in Massachusetts, it's the same thing. You don't have an excessive amount of doctors ready to go on the ready. And you don't have all of the, you can't get care. You're waiting till a person gets to this level of extreme psychosis to be able to get them the care that they need. And I believe I've taken that note in the course of since this trial has started multiple times. The note I've written down is, God forbid we actually get them the care they need before they get to a level of crisis. That is something that has to change. But my dad, thank God, after 5-6 days, a bed opened up in the locked unit. And he had 19 rounds of ECT, which is electric. Samantha, you might know the exact my brain. Electric shock therapy is what we always refer to it as.
Yeah,
my mom
convulsive
wrote an
shock
article.
therapy. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Electric convulsive therapy. They induce essentially a seizure and try to reset the brain. And my dad had bipolar for X amount of years, and he is now so sensitive to antipsychotics, which you need. And so this was like, the next day the judge was going to order him to have electric shock therapy because there was no more routes left to take. And we did sit him down and we said, they'd be so proud of you if you did it. And as a police officer, wouldn't you want that judge to be so proud of you? And it worked. And he did get 19 rounds, you guys. That's a lot of rounds. And that will show you how aggressive he needed therapy at this point. But what I'm saying is, we can't be scared of talking about this stuff because he had only known Rose Kennedy, who became a vegetable, or the neighbor from 1943, the woman that they put in electric shock therapy. My mom wrote a story for the newspaper and said, let this be an awareness that if you get to that point, this is something. And it can kill your memory. I see in the chat, I haven't been looking at the chat, but it can kill your memory. It hasn't, though. It didn't. There was a short period of time where he, it took a little time to readjust and such. But my dad is what we call doing normal people things at this point in his life. There's one of my kids walking by. I apologize. In the 30 plus years that he's been in bipolar, we could never do normal people things because you're always on guard that something's going to fail or you need an adjustment in medication. But he, I'll call my mom on the next street. Like, what are you doing today? And she'll say normal people things. Let me tell you that we don't take that lightly. And we also know that at any moment, somebody in bipolar could go back to something. So you have to be able to be open. You have to have a team. And he's a grown white adult male at this point. So let's go back to Lindsay, who was a young nurse on the front lines who may or may not have been afraid to say certain symptoms or whatnot. But we know from last week she was Googling other symptoms. And I just want to say again, this woman wasn't drug shopping. She wasn't going around looking for different people because she didn't want the real diagnosis. She is a smart, intelligent woman begging for help from a system that couldn't put a plan together until she had a plan. That's criminal. That is, I don't even know if you have the right word for that, but it got to the point where here we are now. She's on trial for taking the lives of her 3 beautiful children. What's at my house?
Oh, people are hearing the music. The beat.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Is it? It's my husband's birthday party, and I
figured that it was. Don't want people got confused.
Listen, so. I'm so sorry. Let me move. I just don't.
Karen, we're doing a second one anyway. Go celebrate with your husband. Like, seriously.
No, but this is
let her
important
finish. Yeah, she wants to finish her. Yeah.
this is truly important to my family, and I
Samantha, are you
Samantha.
leaving?
I gotta go. Yes.
Okay,
You're
no,
awesome.
I don't want to
We
take
want you
time.
back here.
either.
No, you're all right. You're right.
awesome.
Anytime.
You're incredible,
Anytime.
Samantha.
You're
Bye,
awesome.
you
Samantha.
guys.
Have
Bye,
a great
everybody.
weekend, Sam. Thanks.
No, go ahead, Karen. And now there's
No,
beat,
it's
so
just
perfect.
it's. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't. They turned it up. They're cool out there. I'm uncool. This is my winding down from the last 2 weeks of of being sorry. People are now arriving of being at the trial. I'll be back Monday. But you know what? It is. I saw someone comment on the Reddington interview I did, and I just want to say, you have to. There were some people that thought I was insensitive because I did a very quick interview with him. I called it like on the spot with Kevin Reddington. And it was like, what's your favorite food? What's your last, if you had a last meal, I want to state, Kevin Reddington came up to me in court and said, Karen, let's do something fun. Because Kevin Reddington knows that this is so heavy. This weighs on you. And there are so many people so invested in this trial that you have to protect your own mental health as well. And Kevin Reddington has to protect his mental health. So when he came up to me and said, hey, Karen, let's do something fun, I was absolutely not going to say no. So I understand why some people may wonder what the hell I was doing. But
a lot of people are saying they loved the interview.
Oh, so. Thank you. Thank you. It's important. And Bob, you've been there sitting in court for the last week. You've got to, too, that this is not easy. This is heavy. We sat there I don't think you heard the 911 call. Did you hear the 911 call?
No.
Okay. Is the 911 call
Monday?
Okay, that's right. I saw it. My days are now like sort of coming in together. But that's the point. You have to protect your own mental health. Thank you, guys. Thank you. He's a regular man who has taken up this case, which is so incredibly heavy. And he cares about his client. He's not in it for the money. Does he get paid? Yes, we all have to get paid. But he is so caring of her family. And I will tell you right now, there are so many defense attorneys that just do it for the money. You guys aren't those defense attorneys. Kevin Reddington is not those defense attorneys. Sometimes you just kind of get assigned a case. He has taken this family on. This is an extended part of his life. And he understands you must take care of your own mental health. And he says these things, you guys. So he also wants to do stuff that is fun. And you can't just talk about this 24/7. But we really do need to talk about this. And the fact that Allie and Bob have taken this on, this is part of my life. My husband and I are mental health advocates for the largest mental health program in Maine. And it is something that we are so tied to, and it is so important to our family. So I'm so thankful for you guys. Am I making everyone disappear? Am I scaring everyone off, Bob?
No, you're not. You're not.
But thank you guys truly for, I listen, I was in law enforcement, and I did hear Kathy say that they don't know a lot about what they're doing, and they don't. It's not talked about for cops. My mom ended up writing a book. She came to us, 5-6 years ago, almost, saying, if I write a book about our experiences we had as a family on the front line, I'm going to have to really tell our story. And I need you guys to agree to it. And of course I said yes. My brother said yes. And my dad so bravely said yes. And it has been received, and police officers in Maine are getting to hear it. And thank you. I see the chat. Thank you guys. I truly appreciate it. I'm not going to stop. A few scary people aren't going to scare me. Do I know your sister Joyce Seat of Maine Mental Health? I do know who that is. What a small world. What a small world. God bless the frontline workers and the people, and a shout out to Maine. But my mom did write a book. It is an important story. Cops are starting to be able to talk about it. They have brought on social workers. We aren't just going straight to the take a cop. We're starting to recognize, and by we, I mean people who have formerly been in law enforcement or are in now, that we don't have all the answers, and that you can bring a social worker to the scene with you. and
Yeah.
it might be life changing. And
They
I've
should,
seen it, and they
frankly.
should. And it's
Yeah.
not afraid. We can't be afraid to say we don't have the answers, and we may not have been doing it right. And that goes for all people in all sources of frontline work, including nurses, doctors, the psychiatrists, and such. You have to be able to evolve and say, I haven't been doing this right. We haven't always been doing this right. Let's make changes. Because if you're doing it as a business and not because you have that calling, you're doing the wrong business. You're doing the wrong thing. You're not in your line. You're not in your line of work. You need to be in. Makes a difference.
100%.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
For sure.
no doubt about it. There's no doubt about
So
it.
I really do appreciate you guys. Thank you for doing this. It's a heavy day, and you guys have been incredible. And the fact that you're going to bring it, bring people up again and do it again is
we haven't even, we're 6 hours.
right. You haven't
in.
even scratched the surface.
We haven't even scratched the surface. It's like, I'm not going to be able to go like, I
a
have
24-hour stream.
I've got, I don't know, 40 emails to read. I've got,
wow.
if I don't, and like some of the voicemails are like 25 minutes long.
Oh, Lord.
Like, right. I mean,
well,
coming into this, it's like, you're sitting there like with Kathy, it's like none of us were in a position to be able to say, because I mean, she had to tell her shit. She had to tell her story, and
it was
and
time for her to get it off her chest.
Yeah, we had to let her finish, and it's like, and I mean, that's the thing about this type of live is like we're going to give people, because it's hurting if I'm like, oh well, we've heard enough. You can't do that.
That's the
right.
exact
Right.
opposite.
So sorry. Be done. That's
right.
no.
Yeah,
no.
we can't do it. So
But
yeah,
thanks
you're
so much.
you're awesome. You're awesome.
So are you guys. Truly,
You are.
I am so thankful that you guys are bringing awareness to this. And Bob, I have watched. I got my Twitter banned, or X, whatever the hell it's called. It got suspended last week because I was talking too much about this stuff, and there was apparently a planned attack to suspend it. Whatever. I have a new one. You cannot quiet me down.
Well, what is it? Share it.
It is Karen Goldberg by name, in capital ME, like Maine or medical, whatever.
Medical
or
examiner,
me,
right.
Medical examiner. Yeah, no, that's the one job I have not done.
Well, thanks so much for sharing. We appreciate you.
I really appreciate you guys.
Wait, you were
so
you were telling a story. What were you doing?
Oh, what the hell was I doing?
Oh, you said like you.
Oh my God, I have ADHD and autism. So Kathy,
No, she was just saying she got banned for
No,
yes,
she was digging into something. I don't know, and then you got banned, and you
oh,
got a new.
Yeah, I was, I apparently pissed off the wrong people on the YouTubes, and whatever. This is so important that I don't care. I'll make every Twitter I need to make, and the people will find who needs to be. You know what I mean? I believe that. Yeah. And you can't stop it, and you can't stop us from talking. So I remember now. Thank you. I have seen the comments coming after you, Bob, for saying simply a human statement of, I would like to give her a hug. I would like to give her a hug as well, guys. Come for me. It does not scare me. I would give her a hug in a heartbeat. And someone's like, well, would you leave your children with her? Oh my God, you guys, you're missing the freaking point. Okay.
Right. They just, these are folks that don't know nothing about the case. They're just,
they
you know
don't.
what I mean?
They have to have something to argue about, and maybe they need their own mental health care.
That Brian Walsh guy, like who's got 4 million followers, and I assure you,
right?
398,000 or whatever, 809, 900, like 95.
They don't know.
They don't know anything about the case.
Right.
They're just like, what, murderer hug? Oh, how could you dare? I can't sit near a murderer. No, these are real humans, okay? And everybody deserves a defense. And when it comes to mental health, it is a whole different level. And I'm sorry I raised my voice, but it makes me fussy. You know what I mean? Like,
beyond that,
you're on the right place.
She lacks criminal responsibility. I'm there.
Right.
Like you can't listen to this and not think and understand that.
It is what it is. So
how do you think the jury is seeing it, Bob?
It's hard to know.
They're very stoic, right?
They are very, very stoic. I keep telling you.
I've never seen a jury so stoic. I can do an imitation.
Yeah, that's what I keep telling Alison. She's like, people want to hear what they're doing. I'm like, they're really. There's the second row woman, two from the end.
Oh yeah, the handsome woman. Yes,
yeah. She showed some emotion.
She hasn't. and she
Yeah.
just started to.
Right.
She cracked.
Well, when it was the debacle day, as Kevin called it, where Lindsay just broke down twice. Like that was the day,
Yes.
because a lot of them would sneak a peek, look at Lindsay, and then kind of look away. She was like
quickly looking
eyes
over, like-
trained on Lindsay, and was like dabbing her eyes with the tissue. I was like,
All right,
that was the most I've seen.
I'm gonna bring up Dr. M and Dr. Rose and M. Thanks,
Okay.
Karen, so much.
Thank
for
you
sharing
so
your
much, you
story.
guys.
We'll
All
see
right.
you.
Great time. I'll see you
Monday.
Monday.
All righty. Bye
Bye,
bye.
Allie. Thanks.
Bye. So we've got Dr. Rose and M. Dr. Rose, tell us about yourself.
Thanks for your patience, Dr. Rose.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I can't hear anything.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Let's see if she's
Can you guys hear me?
We can
Yeah.
hear
Yeah.
you.
Yes, you can. Okay,
Yeah.
I will speak. If you need to interrupt me, like do something visual because I can't hear anyone.
Oh,
Okay, so my first name is actually Karen. Rose is my middle name. But because, well, obvious reasons, I go by my middle name, social reasons. So I have been watching, like I said in the private chat, I'm a longtime listener, first time caller type thing. I've been watching you guys for a while, and I love the way that you guys present the court cases and the way that you go into detail and stuff. I have paid a lot of attention to the Lindsay Clancy case. And I've watched a bunch of different podcasts about it. And I have some notes that I wrote down. Okay, so my undergrad is in psychology, and then I recently graduated from medical school. I haven't been to residency yet, so my experience level is not even that of Dr. Tufts. But one thing that I noticed in court was that I'd like to clarify is the difference between the way that psychologists and medical doctors will assess patients. What I remember from psychology was that you want to go in with a fresh slate, a clean slate. You don't want to read like the previous assessments because you don't want to go in with preconceived notions. So for me, that would be like the first meeting with a patient to go in with a clean slate. As an MD, you do want to go in and read all the different the patient notes, everything that had been there. Let's see, I cannot read here because it's okay. Yeah.
oh, that was to Izzy.
As
Sorry.
an MD, you do want to see like the patient's previous history, whatever lab work has been done. All of that goes into the assessment that an MD will make, which is something that Dr. Tufts, in my opinion, my inexperienced opinion, that she should have done. But as far as the psychologists taking her at the way that she presented with him, I understand that because that's the way that I understand it to be done. Let's see. I have seen a lot of things about the correlation between when she stopped breastfeeding and she developed more extreme psychological symptoms. That made something like click for me because years ago I had a hysterectomy and then I went through major depression, like trying all kinds of different meds. And, they say at least 2 weeks, possibly 6 to 8 weeks to see the result or the effect of the medications. So I went through all that. And at the same time, I was going through empty nesting where I went from being mom to my child